I lived on the street for 5 years. At the age of 15, I was taught how to read. Today, I'm a husband, a father of 5. I'm a pastor. I'm a community builder. I'm a devoted citizen.
Fantastic. If I think of the men in this nation who are a force for good, I think you would be right up there on the top of the list.
It is not over until it's over. You can make use of your life to impact and better your community and the people around you.
We need to fulfill our responsibilities to each other in order for us to build a nation.
If you are a coward leader, you want to keep people ignorant and uneducated so that you can continue to rule them. That is not a leader.
Let's not make excuses. Let's step up, each and every individual, each and every South African.
That's right.
Hi there, welcome to another episode of Dangerous But Good with Craig Wilkinson. I'm with a great friend, a great brother, a great colleague. We've shared the platform many, many times. He's actually my pastor. He's the chairman of our board, the nonprofit we run, Father a Nation. Just an all-round phenomenal man, citizen. Chris, it's just awesome to have you on board and really looking forward to this conversation.
Wow, thank you so much, Craig, for having me. I'm so excited and I'm looking forward to have a conversation with you. Man.
I mean, we're all about being a dangerous but good, but really what that translates to is being a force for good.
Yep.
And I tell you what, if I think of the men in this nation who are a force for good, I think you would be right up there on the top of the list. You've written a book, Devoted Citizen, just inspiring, encouraging, motivating, teaching men and women how to be good citizens. You've done so much in the community, building houses, starting businesses. I mean, the list goes on. But I'd love for you just to tell us a little bit about Chris and then jump into the Devoted Citizen stuff.
Wow, thank you, Craig. And what an honor to be here. And I pray that the listeners and the viewers at home will enjoy this. Dangerous but good. You know, what a statement. You know, when God created a man, or humankind, he blessed them and empowered them with gifts. It's just a question of time for people to discover that. But we are dangerous in a good way to make a world a better place.
Fantastic.
So I discovered my gifting at the age of 15. At the age of 10, I ran away from home. And I was in the streets of Johannesburg for 5 years until a good Samaritan picked me up.
You literally lived on the streets.
I lived on the street for 5 years. And somebody picked me up and said, you know what? I know who you are. I know where you are coming from. And let me just embrace you. And so that we can produce something. And at the age of 15, I was taught how to read. And today I'm a husband and I'm a father of 5. I'm a pastor. I'm a community builder. I'm a devoted citizen.
Fantastic.
So I thank God for giving me that opportunity that it is not over until it's over. You can make use of your life to impact and better your community and the people around you. And I'm glad that I can do that with my people while I'm still alive.
Well, I think all of us are very glad that you're alive and kicking and doing so well. Yeah. I mean, your story is one of phenomenal redemption. Yeah. South Africa has got so many people living on the streets. We have so much homelessness. We have so much despair and unemployment. And what I love about your story is you're a living example of redemption, a living example of the fact that the past does not equal the future, that there is always hope. I mean, I'd love to hear a little bit more about that journey. I mean, you said you started learning to read at the age of 15. And here you are, you're an author, you're a writer, you're an activist. I mean, tell us a little more about that transition.
It was not easy. I mean, coming from a family of 8, being a last born, losing my father at the age of 1, I was 1 year, 6 months when he passed away. And the life was very tough. And that is why I find myself on the street. But, to cut the long story short, at the age of 22, I passed my matric. I was able to be pushed, working hard so that I can redeem myself because much was wasted at the age of 22. And I finished my matric and I pursued theology because I felt somebody was so good to me and I wanted to do good to other people.
Right.
And that is when I studied theology. I became a pastor a few years later. And thereafter, I started the work of just building the lives of people. Yes. Sometimes you go through something so that you can give something to the people. You cannot give what you don't have.
Right.
To me, all the struggles and the pain, it was a moment of training.
Right.
It was a moment of learning so that I can give back. So I looked at that experience and I can say God was just putting something in me.
Right.
So over the years, I started just building the lives of people, going back to my township and to say to the people, it is not over. Don't use your failures as an excuse. Even if you come from a broken family, you can still do it. And that is exactly what I have done. I mean, can you imagine being in matric at the age of 22? I mean, most of the kids there, they were 17. But I said to myself, you know what? The ball is on my court. I just have to do something. And I have done that up to this moment. And today I wrote, I've authored few books based on my life, based on what is happening around me, based on the future ahead of me, because it's not about the past, it's about the future. Use your past and then to shape your future. That is how I have done it, Craig, all these years.
I love that, Chris. I mean, your pain was your training ground. Your pain was your university.
Yeah, that's it.
There's a beautiful saying that says, be the father you wish you had, or be the father you never had.
Exactly.
And then you'll never have to go through life saying, but I never had a father. And I think I love what you're saying there. Excuses, there are reasons, aren't there? There are reasons that
we can all give reasons.
There are reasons, but ultimately no excuses, because ultimately we need to. But Chris, what I love too is a lot of people get their lives together, but then they live for themselves. They live for themselves. And what I love about your life and your story, and just you as a brother and a friend and a colleague, and as we've stood on many platforms together and shared and ministered to people, which has been a real honor and a blessing. You've put back. I mean, you started a church. You now have 7 congregations,
7 campuses.
But not only in the church. I know during COVID, your church was a tremendous contributor towards feeding schemes in communities. So you've dedicated your life to transforming not just your own family, not just your own life, not just your own congregation, but the communities in which you operate. And that led to. I think that led to you and I gelling very closely. You joining graciously our board in terms of our working with men. But the devoted citizen thing is something I really want to look at, because basically what you're saying, and we'll talk about the government and the failures of the government down the line, but basically you're saying, let's not make excuses. Let's step up, each and every individual, each and every South African.
That's right.
Let's deal with the past, and we'll talk about the beautiful reconciliation we had on the platform. Let's deal with the past, but tell us about devoted citizen. You got 21 principles there.
21 principles. Let me just tell you about the story of devoted citizen. I've been a preacher for some time, and somewhere in my spirit, I felt we are not doing that much as the church. The church is always within the walls.
Self-focused.
It's self-focused. Until, this revelation of this story of a good Samaritan came to my spirit.
Right.
The scriptures talk about the Good Samaritan. What happened? A crime was committed. This is a story told by Jesus. It says a crime was committed. This man was robbed, beaten, left half dead. And guess what? The person who appears first in the crime scene, it was a priest. And check what the priest does. Come close to this man, he does nothing. Probably he was just focusing on the next sermon. The Bible says he passed by.
Right.
He was on schedule. He wanted to do his religious rituals instead of helping somebody. The Levite did the same thing, came closer to the broken man. A man was about to die. He did not do anything. He came closer, but he just said, oh, Hashem, because that's what we are good at as human beings. We come closer, but we don't do anything.
Don't get our hands dirty.
We don't get our hands dirty. And finally, this good Samaritan comes by. And here is something that troubled me, because Jesus was talking here about the church. He says, who is the good neighbor? The guy comes riding. The priest was walking. The Levite was walking, which is a story for another day. But it's the picture of the church here. We are always behind. We are very slow. This guy comes in, he's riding, and he take a pause, comes off his donkey, treat the guy, wash his wound, bandage his wound. He does not even ask, who are you, where you come from, does not even mind about the color of the skin. All that he saw, it was a wounded man. And he took this guy to the inn. He says to the innkeeper, take care of him. Whatever you spend on him, it is on me. And Jesus asked the question and said, who is a good neighbor? And then all of us, we know that this guy was a good neighbor. Craig, on that story, I felt the Lord saying to me, church people are good Christians but are not good citizens.
Right.
We always want to take care of our own, the people that we don't know. We are not prepared to go an extra mile and show some love. Let me tell you, if you love your own, you have not loved.
Well, can I ask you that question? Can you be a good Christian and not be a good citizen? You cannot, can you?
Exactly. It's not supposed to be like that.
Yeah.
But people, they think they can be like that.
Right.
You cannot be a Christian and not be a good citizen.
Yeah.
You know, if you're a Christian, automatically you must become a good citizen. But over the years, Christians have distanced themselves from the community. Somewhere, somehow, we think we are holy than the people around us. Right. Yet we are supposed to serve that. This guy, he goes to the innkeeper. He says to the innkeeper, take care of this man. Whatever you spend on this man, it's on me.
Fantastic.
Watch this. The innkeeper does not even doubt this guy. They know his reputation, that we can take care of this wounded man. When he comes back, he's going to pay. He had a reputation. He was a man of integrity. The people around him, they knew him. That is the type of a life that we must live. Now, in this book, Devoted Citizen, we talk about love your country. Don't litter. Why people are littering in the country? Why people, they urinate anywhere? You understand? This is what we do in our own country. You know, it's amazing that somebody will buy probably a packet of chips in town. The moment they step into the township, they throw the paper away. What's wrong with us? We are not good citizens. We don't love our country. We don't love ourselves. We don't honor ourselves. We don't look at the traffic lights. You know, if you're a good citizen, the traffic light, when it says red, it simply means stop. You know, but people, they don't want to do that. At the end of the day, we find ourselves in danger because we don't exercise the principles of becoming a good citizen.
Right. I mean, that raises a very good point. You know, you got the whole issue of rights. People rioting for their rights. These are my rights. These are my rights. But the other side of the coin is responsibilities, you know?
It's one of the chapter, Craig, that is there.
There are no rights without responsibilities. I mean, I have a right to safety, but if you, as my brother, decide to be violent towards me, you're violating your responsibility, my rights are gone.
That's it.
You know, I mean, we need to fulfill our responsibilities to each other in order for us to build a nation. What do you think it is, Chris? And I mean, I want to go more into some of the chapters. But there's this whole issue of, someone once said, we had our political miracle, 1994, but we're still waiting for our healing miracle, emotional healing and our economic healing. Now, if you go to the emotional side, I mean, you and I had a very emotional experience on the platform of your very church where we washed each other's feet, a black man and a white man. And I don't even like talking, you know, I love what Morgan Friedman said. You know, someone asked him, he said, how do we end racism? Did you see that interview? And he said, quite simply, you stop calling me a black man, I'll stop calling you a white man. Because as soon as we do that, we make that more important than the fact that we're men and human beings, you know. But having said that, we have a history, we have a past, there's woundedness, there's damage, there's pain, and we haven't recovered from that. How do we move on? How do we find that healing? The fact that before I'm a white man, I'm a man. Before I'm a man, I'm a human being.
That's it.
Before I'm even a Christian, I'm a human being. Before I'm a South African, you know, to get back to the essence of our humanity. Because the story you told there about the Good Samaritan, he saw a human being.
That's it.
It didn't matter if the guy was black or white, male
educated
or female,
or not,
gay or not. I mean, none of that mattered. What mattered was there was a fellow human being who was hurting. How do we get to that place, you know?
Let me tell you, you know, I always learn, especially from my children. You know, one day I picked up a picture of my boys. You know, they took this picture at school. You know, obviously being a father in South Africa, I said, boys, are you aware that we are the only black children in the school, in this class? My boy says, we're not aware.
Amazing.
But it is me as a parent who's actually making them to think like that.
If you don't raise it, it's not an issue.
If you don't raise it, they were not even aware. It's what we are teaching to our children. You know, our children, they grow up with this mentality, white, black. It is because we instill that to them. You know, and then and there I realized that that was not something that I should have raised with my children, because with them, they just see the colleagues, they just see other students. So I know we've got the past, Craig, and we cannot, you know, overlook that. The past is there, but I strongly believe somewhere, somehow, we need to come to a point and say, guys, this is the past. Yeah. It happened, but we still have a responsibility for the future. Yeah. We cannot remain in the past. That is why I love how the car is being designed. If you want to look at the cars behind you, you just look at them with a small mirror that is given unto you. But if you want to look at the future, there's a big windscreen. It simply means there is much more ahead of us than what is behind us. Right. How I wish as South Africans, we come to a point where we say, the past has happened. Yes, guys, this has happened, but we still have to come together and begin to build. Yeah. We had that opportunity where I said, man, yes, I was hurt. You were hurt. We washed, I wash your feet, you wash mine, because we want to move from here and moving forward. Personally, I strongly believe there is much more, to achieve in the future than to dwell on the past. But I want to also touch at this issue of, the rights without responsibility. Right. I think we need to deal with that, because if we're going to know more of our rights without responsibility, that is going to drown us as a nation. Right. We are where we are even today as South Africa because people, they know their rights too much, but we don't know our responsibilities. Right. We need to come to a point where we take responsibility, for our action and for the future, and so that we can have a better society. I'll just leave it there, Craig.
No, Chris, there's so much to unpack here. How do we talk to, because, in terms of moving forward, one has to do that. You cannot let your past dictate your future. Yeah. But one has to heal from that past. One has to,
Actually, it's a choice. We need to make a decision.
Yeah, yeah. It is a decision. But you get an individual. Steve Biko said an amazing thing. He said, the greatest weapon of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. Yeah. And so within the minds of every South African, whether it's someone that's teaching our kids how to be racist, because we are doing that, by raising the issue. You're making an issue that was not an issue. I remember I went to school in Botswana, and it was probably the most multicultural school in the world at the time. It was we had Russians, Americans, we had every color under the sun. And there was a one time when because the headmaster was a guy from South Africa who couldn't start a multiracial school here. He wasn't allowed to, so he moved to Botswana to do it. And there was a fight between two students, and it was just two guys fighting. Yeah. And again, the teachers turned it into a racial issue when it was absolutely not. It was just two young men fighting. It was so there is a danger of us racializing things, but there's also a danger of us sweeping under the carpet pain that was very real. Yeah. And I think that's very crucial. That as particularly as white South Africans, we need to acknowledge the pain that was inflicted, and never undermine it, and never say, just get over it. Yeah. But on the other hand, there is the sense of, well, I can either be a victim to that, or I can overcome it through my choice and become a victor of the future. And I think that's what you're saying, there needs to be forgiveness, and there needs to be repentance, and there needs to be a moving forward as human beings, as fellow human beings. And the beauty of our rainbow nation, as Tutu pushed and Mandela pushed, is that there's no more colorful nation. And I don't mean just skin color. I just mean in terms of incredible diversity, incredible skills and talents and abilities. Our rugby team for me is the greatest example of that, isn't it? You've got guys that are 2 meters tall. You've got guys that are small. You've got guys that are big and like small. Big and small. Yeah. Every color under the sun. And because they appreciate the diversity and they work together, they absolutely make it happen. But Chris, if we can talk a little bit about healing, because all of us have had woundedness in the past. Yeah. We all have, I had a younger brother who committed suicide at the age of 21, tremendous pain. Every one of us has pain of various degrees. And it's so crucial that we find in ourselves healing and wholeness so that we can not be a victim of our past and move forward. Yeah. As a pastor, you've dealt with this so often. Your advice? Yeah,
Craig, I have to say that when you speak of the past, the apartheid, I didn't read that in the book. I've experienced that. Yeah. It's not a theory. It's not a theory. Yeah. I lived in that. Sometimes it breaks my heart when you see a young person standing up there and say apartheid. I said, you don't know what you're talking about. I lived in that season. I know the pain of being told you cannot use this bathroom. You cannot sit here in this train. You've got your own place. I've been there. And when somebody comes to you and say, just get over it, you are not dealing with the matter in a proper way. And I'm not even sure if you qualify to say that. I'm sitting here with you and I'm so comfortable, and because you are real. You are real. How I wish that even our white brothers and sisters can be real and understand and be gracious as well and walk with me. How I wish somebody can walk with me and say, how was it? How did you feel? And all that and that. And it's more about walking the journey, with one another.
Authentically.
Exactly. And be gracious to one another. Because even on my side, and I'm sitting with you here, I cannot just conclude that you are one of those, who enforce apartheid, and I must be gracious to you. Probably your grandfather did that. But we've got a new generation. So what I'm trying to say is that both of us, we need to come side by side, be gracious to each other, understand that this has happened. You ask for forgiveness, and at the same time, I do the same. And we move forward. We talk about the future. The truth of the matter, you cannot speak about the future without dealing with the foundation of the past. And then when we do that, we are able to move forward. And I used the word before, I said it is a choice. And it is a decision that all of us have to embark on and say, you know what, I must make a decision to say, I need to move forward. I cannot remain in this position forever. And if we can be real about that, and be gracious to one another, I strongly believe we're going to build this nation and moving forward. And if I may also add on that, we need people who are going to model this type of a life.
100%.
People like you and I. I think the problem that we have in our country, we have few good role models. When people are so stressed and people are in poverty, there are no jobs in the country, you find many voices, and then speaking. And people take advantage of the situation. So we need more role models. That is why I decided to come out as a pastor. I said, it is not enough for me just to hide in the church. Let the people know that there are good people out there. And let the people know that there's Craig and Chris. We are prepared to build this nation. So we want to encourage people at home, come out as black and white. I'm sorry I have to use that word. As role models coming out and say, this is what we can do moving forward. That will be my take. And we can heal this country, Craig, then moving forward. And also promote some good things that are happening in the country. We've got a lot of good things that are happening. The problem is that we take a small thing, a negative thing, and then we promote that thing and into the world. I mean, for now, if I know you wanted maybe to touch on that, look at what happened in America. Trump, he looks at South Africa and then he sees Africa as a country that commits genocide. Because one thing was taken, and then we never told our good stories. And then one bad story can come out and paint the entire thing. But it's something that one can also dwell much on that.
Well, Chris, I mean, I love what you're saying there because there are so many wonderful human beings in this nation. I mean, I work a lot in Alexander Township and many others. Man, I see the most incredible human beings. You've graciously invited me to speak to your men's group on many occasions. What an incredible group of men. Some of them high up in business, high up in phenomenal entrepreneurs, professionals, lawyers, doctors. Unbelievably good men and women, and you see that across all sectors of society. Rich, poor, in between. And we need to focus on that.
That's right.
I mean, the Comrades Marriage has just happened. I mean, isn't that just a beautiful example of South Africans getting together and just supporting, helping, running, I mean, just enjoying life together. So there is so much of that in South Africa, that's so much good. And you model that. I know together we have really worked hard at modeling that, and we need to just grow that, improve that. If you go back to that Trump conversation, it was such a was hard to watch, wasn't it? It was really hard, because, we don't focus on the good.
Yeah.
But I think also, Chris, we don't focus on the truth sometimes as well, do we? What really annoyed me about our president was there needs to be acknowledgement of the things that have gone wrong.
Yeah.
There are more poor people now today in South Africa than there were 20 years ago. Yeah. There's more homelessness than there. There's
unemployed people.
There's more unemployed. There's more murder. The murder rate's gone up. The gender-based violence. We need to admit to this and say, look, this is the reality of what we're doing. Where have we gone wrong? How can we fix it? Not to dwell on it, not to get stuck on it, but never to justify it, never to sweep it. The point you made earlier, if I have not been through something, I cannot understand it. Yeah. I can listen. I can be gracious. As a man, we can't understand childbirth pains. We can't. We can be there to hold our wife's hand. We can do, but we can never say, honey, I understand, because we don't. Me not having been through what you've been, I can't understand it. I can stand with you, but we can't look back on the past and get stuck in it. And so we need to. What does the Bible say? You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. So unless you look the truth in the face, unless we look in the mirror, see warts and all, see all the stuff that's bad and wrong and good, and say, right, this is the truth, this is the reality, this is what I need to deal with, and you're doing that,
That's right.
I'd love to go more into your devoted citizen, some of the other stuff that you say there.
Maybe let me have my comment on that one as well, the issue of Trump and our president. I always have a statement that I always utter. I said, if you are not happy with the fruit, deal with the seed. Look at the seed that you have planted. Yeah. For me, there was not even a need for that discussion if we planted good seeds. Right. We are dealing with the outcomes of the wrongs that we could not do. You see, unfortunately, the politics of this country, it is self-centered. Hence, we end up dealing with that. Right. If we had a good governance, you're dealing with crime. You're dealing with all the issues of unemployment, poverty. You take care of your people. There's no corruption. All these things that we had to answer before Trump. It is because we have never done the basic right. There is murder in the country because people, they don't honor the law. There is murder in the country because we don't deal with the crime. We don't deal with the criminals. And if you want to deal with this matter right at the fruit level, you are too late. You are dealing with the fruit. So that is why, for me, that was not an issue. The issue is that president come back to the roots. Deal with the unemployment. We are sitting with people, 8.5 people who are not employed in this country.
It's devastating.
What do you expect after all? And I want to say this, and I've said this again. The words of kill the boer, and kill the farmer. Do we really need that now?
Not at all.
At this level?
No.
It is this relevant? After 30 years of democracy, what is the fruit of that? There was no need, if we have dealt with that, there was no need for us to be exposed at that level. For Trump to play that clip. If we have dealt with the roots, deal with the issues here, there was no need. Most of the time, we deal with the after effects. We deal with that. So I'm one person, I want to deal with the roots.
100%.
Deal with the root, find the roots and plant good seeds. So that you can harvest a good crop. That is my take. All the things, the money, the budget that we are spending, all the billions, let me tell you, we are dealing with the after effects.
100%.
If I was a politician, if I was a leader, given a budget, you ask me what is it that I will do. Let me tell you, I will educate our people. We are in a country that does not give our people the best education. That is still a problem. We've got people who are graduating this year. After graduation, they still don't have jobs. Why should we push people to have these degrees, yet they can't produce food for themselves? As a country, you need to look at the needs. What are the needs of the country? What is the problem of the country? Craig, in your own company, when you employ somebody, you employ them because you want them to come and solve the problems. That is how you deal with the situation. What is the problem of this nation? These are the problems. What is the priority? That and that and that and that and that. So for me to wrap up that issue of Trump and our president, there was no need for that discussion if we dealt with our family business right here at home. There was no need of explanation. There would be no need of people being murdered. There was no need, of the word genocide, because there's no genocide here, and then all that and that. But the truth of the matter is that South Africa is the worst country when it comes to murder. There are more people dying in this country compared to the countries that are in war at this present moment. And that should be a concern for every citizen of this country.
I could not have put that better. I think we need to record that and play it in Parliament over and over again. But it's exactly right. I mean, we raise issues that shouldn't be issues. We raise issues that are red herrings, that are not the real issue. We talk about genocide, but we've got unemployment of 40% plus. We talk about genocide where we got more murders in this country now than have been murdered in a war zone. I mean, we have 7 9/11s every year in this country. You know that? 27,000 murders every year. Where 9/11 was 3. So there's more like 9 9/11s every year. These are not the issues we're dealing with, The education levels. One of my greatest pains is there are people today working as gardeners that were born 25 years ago. Had they had a good education, they have the potential to be a lawyer, a doctor, a nuclear physicist. The intelligence is there, but the education and the opportunity, these are the issues. These are the things we really need to deal with. Chris, I'd love to get your thoughts on because you're a father of many, not just your own kids, but many. The issue of fatherlessness. And much of this is a legacy of the past. Single-sex hostel, migrant labor, our economy. But fatherlessness, and you're the chairman of our board, Father a Nation. I mean, and so our hearts are very much the hearts of fathers. You see that in your congregation. You see that in communities, the brutal impact of a lack of fathers, teaching young men how to be good men, protecting daughters. Talk to us a little bit about fatherlessness.
Craig, let me also say, as much as I said, losing a father at the age of 1 year 6, it was a painful thing in my life. Until the age of 18, 19, that is when I had a father figure in my life. And that brought a lot of difference. I want to tell you, growing without a father or a father figure in your life, it's the biggest crime in this country. Or should I say it, in the world.
Right.
Especially when it comes to boys. Boys, they need a father. They need a male figure next to them. Because if you don't have that, you will grow wild. I grew up as an angry young man, raised by a single parent, not knowing, what is it that I need to do, because there was no one who would channel me into the right direction.
The boundaries,
the discipline, those boundaries, that will build you. And then as a young man, I did not have that until I got a spiritual father who was my pastor. And who taught me simple thing. My boy, this is how you brush your teeth. This is how you eat with fork and knife. This is how you take a bath. This is how you speak to a woman. I saw him speaking to his wife, and I started learning. We've got many boys who are growing without fathers. If I'm not mistaken, 67% of households is fatherless. If you look at our conference, it just recently that we had, I challenge men, because we need to challenge every boy and every man to say, if you have a child somewhere out there, you need to go and get that boy, that girl. Never allow your children to grow without you being a father. Yes, you make some mistake. You were young. You were 18. You were 17. When you made that girl pregnant. But that does not give you the rights and then to live as if there's no baby out there. I challenged 2,500 men in that meeting. I said to them, go and find that boy, because if you're going to leave that boy there, and if you discover that you are there as a father and you were not there for him, he's going to grow up with anger. So I'm saying we need to deal. We have a serious scourge in this country where many people, girls and boys, are growing without fathers. No wonder so much crime. It's a sign of anger.
Exactly.
Look at how these women are being murdered, brutally murdered. The boys, they are trying to communicate something that they are angry. And we need to do something. I want to challenge every man, and to be a mentor of a boy.
Yeah.
Don't just look after your own children. The fact is, if you have a baby, go out there and find that baby. Yes, you might have moved into another relationship, but it is good for you to fight for your son, your daughter.
Absolutely.
You might not bring them in this relationship, but make sure that you are available. And it's not about you being employed. Being a father, it's not about you having money.
No.
It's all about you being there and avail yourself for that. So we have a serious problem. We want to encourage, and I want to honor you for this program, fathering the nation. We need to father the nation. That is what it's needed at this present moment. Otherwise, we're not going to build this nation.
We're not.
If I have to put my final, maybe a comment, look at how God dealt with this thing when right in the beginning to Abraham. He says, Abraham, I'm going to bless you. I'm going to make your name great. And this is what I want you to do. All the families on earth will be blessed through you. This is how God blessed the nation. When the family is in order, the nation will be blessed.
100%.
That's how I will put it, Craig.
100%, Chris. 100%. The recent camp we did for men from Alex, and many of your church men were there, and I love the men's group you have. I mean, men over the last decade or two have been demonized, haven't they? They've been, hashtag men are trash, toxic masculinity. And you've focused on that very heavily in your congregation, building up a very strong group of excellent men. And so we had 10 of your men on the camp helping to mentor and facilitate. One of the beautiful stories that came out of that, I was in Alex yesterday, is one of the men who was on this camp said he hangs out on this corner of where there are a whole bunch of men, and most of them are unemployed. And he started working with those men after the camp, just taking them through the material, that we produce, the 6-pack of masculine virtues. And he says that corner used to be a dangerous corner for women. They used to walk past scared. They used to avoid it because of the cat calling and all the. He said now that's it's known as a safe corner for women because of the transformation in those men.
Wow.
And that's a beautiful story. And I think our mission, our vision, our goal is to make South Africa that safe corner. A safe corner of the world for women by transforming the men. The mandate of men is to protect. Quite simply, you and I are a safe space. No one will be harmed in our presence because we are strong men and we are fighters.
That's how it should be.
And that's how every man should be. And unfathered men have broken, wounded hearts. There is anger. There is an orphaned heart. There's an orphan spirit. There's a passivity. There's an aggression, and we so desperately need to heal that and to fix that. Anything more from Devoted Citizen? I know there are 21 chapters, but
maybe the one that I can touch on, is that when we see countries that are successful, I mean, you look at your Dubai, and you look at Rwanda, and let me tell you, Craig, it is not a miracle that those people are there. They made a decision.
Right.
They lead us together with their citizens.
Yes.
The leader must cast the vision to the citizens. How I wish this is what can happen in our country, where the president comes in and say one day, fellow South Africans, our country is dirty. Can you take an hour, maybe once in 2 weeks, we're going to clean the community, pick up the papers and all that. We work together as citizens. We work together.
And the president picks up a broom himself.
Exactly. The president picks up a broom himself. Yeah. Unfortunately, we think leadership is you remaining in the office, lock yourself in the office.
The blue light brigade.
And blue lights. And then bullying people on the road, which I still don't understand. If you've got a watch, you've got an appointment somewhere, leave home on time so that you can be. Why now you have to move people arrogantly on the way? I was in the office this morning, 5:30. I was in the office because I knew my program. There was no need for me to bully anybody. And so those are the small things that we still have to teach our people, to say leading. When they say you are a leader, look at the word lead. There's a word there, lead. It simply means you show by example. This is how it must be done. If you want the nation to be citizens of integrity, don't steal. You must not steal as a leader.
It's so simple, isn't it?
It's so simple. pick up the paper. Make sure your resident is clean. It still doesn't make sense to me. You go to our government department, and I will say it without fear. You go to our government departments. The grass has not been cut. They're littering all over. And tomorrow you are coming to me to say,
pay your tax.
Pay your tax.
Yeah.
Pay your water and lights. Yeah. Come on, guys. This is not leadership. Yeah. Lead by example. Craig, we've got a principle in our church. I say to our people, if you overlook a piece of paper, we even laugh about it. We are saying it's a crime in this church. If you are a member of this church and your grass in your own home is not cut, you are committing a crime according to the rules of Hope Restoration. Because you cannot come here and be taught, yet you can't even clean your own house.
Simple.
Let me tell you, that has brought a transformation to our people. I said, before you come to this church, come on, guys. Wash your car. Be proud of what you have. We are leading this thing by example. And so that will be me right there, Craig, to say those countries, they never prayed for them to be there, to be like that. They made a decision from top, bottom.
Yeah.
And the citizens, they follow. Now those people, they've got a safe country because they know that this will benefit them. That is how you build a life. That's how you build a nation. That's how you build a community. Everybody must be involved. At the end of the day, we celebrate together.
Don't you love the Japanese story? Destroyed Hiroshima and Nagasaki, atomic, and now look at them.
Look at them.
I think second biggest economy in the world. Just
Singapore.
phenomenal. Look at Singapore.
Singapore.
But these are citizens with a work ethic, and I think the enemy to the work ethic is entitlement, isn't it? Sitting back and expecting, the government's going to save me. Chris is going to save me. We got to break that. Break the entitlement and get back into a work ethic and just making it happen.
Here is another thing, Craig. I don't know how somebody's going to take this. But if you are a coward leader, you know what you do? You want to keep people ignorant and uneducated so that you can continue to rule them. That is not a leader. And this is what I've observed with many politicians, not only in this country, but in many countries. If you want to remain in power, you keep your people poor, you keep them ignorant, you give them a cheap education, you don't want to empower them because the moment they are empowered, you think they will take over. But great leaders, they empower their people so that when you are no more, things they continue. Let me tell you, I can leave that church for 3 months, and the people that I've raised, they can run with that organization without me. If you think you have built an organization, but it only functions when you are there,
you failed.
You have failed. But great leaders, they build an organization and they take a step back. And if everything is functioning without them being there, you have done a great work. Unfortunately, many politicians, they're intentional with the poverty that they bring to people because they want them to continue to depend on them and so that they can continue to lead them. That is why they're even scared to take away those 350 rands.
They want dependence.
They want dependence so that they can be voted in power.
Chris, I think that's probably a good place to end off. We've covered a lot of ground. Anything else that you want to say?
I hope you have not put me into a problem, but I'm very comfortable about it. To speak the truth, that is me. And if you are a leader and you need to lead, and I want to challenge our people in this country, take responsibility. Play your part, where you are. I know that sometimes it might be overwhelming. You don't even know where to start. But let me tell you, just light your corner, your light in that small corner. Begin where you are and do good to the people around you. That is how you build a nation. Don't wait until you are being given a bigger responsibility. Be faithful with the small things that have been given unto you, and you can be trusted with bigger things. But we pray for the prosperity of this country, that one day the Lord will remember us and great leaders will really rise and take their rightful position. Thank you for having me, Craig.
Brother, Absolute pleasure. I can officially announce that you're a force for good and you are dangerous but good.
Thank you, my man.
Thank you, man.
Bless you, man.
Bless you. Bless you.